Hello everyone, welcome to problem solving tutorial. This is me Mahir. Today we will be solving UVA online judges maximum GCD problem. In this problem, it is said that given n integers, you have to find the maximum GCD of every possible pair of these integers. The first line of input is an integer n that determines the number of test cases, and for each test cases there is one line which contains m positive integers. We have to find the maximum of GCD of these numbers. Okay, the output will be the maximum GCD of every possible pair. That means we will be given m numbers for each test cases, and we have to find the maximum GCD for every possible pair. Okay, for example, in the sample input we can see that for 10, 20, 30 and 40 the maximum GCD is 20. This is a GCD of 20 and 40. So the output is 20. Okay. So how do we solve this? To solve this problem, we need to do two things. One thing that we have to notice here that the number of numbers taken as input for each test cases is not given. That means we have to find a way to take as many numbers as we want. Then we have to extract the integers from those streams of number. Another thing that we have to do is, since there can be at most 100 numbers, at most 99 numbers, so you have to find a faster way of finding out the GCD. Okay, so we'll be using Euclidean GCD to solve this problem. Now, what I will be doing here to solve this problem is, I will take this 10, 20, 30, 40, the stream of number as a string. Then I will parse the string and find out the integers and put those integers in a vector. Then we will calculate the GCD for each possible pair of that vector. Then at last we will print out the maximum GCD. So the first step will be, let me repeat the procedure again. At first I will take a string which contains these 10, 20, 30, 40, that means the numbers. Then I will parse the string and find out each individual integers and push those integers in a vector. To learn about vector, you can visit c++.com. And here you can search vector. Vector is basically a flexible array. You don't have to initialize its size beforehand. Its size will dynamically be set as the number of elements you keep in that vector. Okay. So at first we will take the numbers as string. Then we will parse that string and find out each individual integers and push those integers in a vector. Then in that vector, for each possible pair, we will find out the GCD. Then we will check. Then we will print out the maximum of those GCDs. Okay. So for first step, let's start the coding. Okay, now we will be coding in C++. For C++ coding, we'll use this header IO stream for input output. For using vector, we will use this header vector. And one thing that we have to do in C++ coding is adding this line using namespace std. Okay. So at first what we will be doing is taking the number test case number as input. This tree. excuse me. Now we will run a loop that runs for t number of times. For each test case, at first we will take the string that contains all the integers as input. Now we can take string in two ways, with scene but and with getLine. The difference between scene and getLine is, if we had taken the input in scene, the spaces wouldn't be included in the string. That means if we add a space in the one string will be counted as several strings. The spaces will divide them into different strings. But getLine will include all the spaces in a single string. Okay, so now that we have taken input of the string, what we'll have to do is get a vector that contains all the individual integers. So let's declare a vector of integer type, since it says that each test case contains m positive integers. So the integers will be positive, that is greater than 0, and they will be integers. So the vector will be of type integer. Let's name that as v. This will be equal to, say, let's use a method, user defined method getVect, which will have string as parameter, str as parameter, and we will get the string. So what happens in this getVect function? This will be of type, as you can see, since we are keeping the return value of this getVect function in a vector, so the return type of the getVect function will be vector. Okay, so now what we'll have to do is, we have to run a loop. Every time we get a space, we will keep track of the integers in a variable, say dot, which will be initialized as 0 at first. We'll also declare a vector that we will be returning. Let's call it red. Okay, now we'll run a loop. Okay, now we have to find out the length of the string. Now we will run a loop that runs for n times. We will check if the ith index is a space. We will add the current. Let's start with not space. If the ith element of the string is not a space, then what we'll be doing is, if it's not a space, then it will be a digit from 0 to 9, and it will be in character form. So what we'll have to do is, we have to add that digit to our dot variable. Before that, we have to multiply dot with 10, then we will add the digit to it. But since the digit is in character form, the particular index element will be in character form, we have to subtract the character value of 0 from it. Okay, so what happens here basically is, say for example, for 125, since for 1, since the value of, say for example, I is equal to 0, so stri won't be equal to space, it will be equal to 1. Now initially dot was 0, so we will multiply dot with 10, so it will be 10, it will still be 0. Then we will add stri minus character value of 0, that means character value of 1 minus character value of 0, that will return the value 1. Since each digit's character value is, so let's state it as like this. the character value of 1 is 1 time greater than the 1 unit greater than the character value of character 0. Then character value of 2 is character value of 0 plus 2, and so on. So by subtracting the character value of 0 from stri, we'll find out the integer value of stri. Now for second index 2, now the value of tot is 1 and stri minus 0 is 2. We will multiply the tot with 10. That will give us 1 into 10, 10, and we will add that 2 with 10. That will give us 12. When we get 5, at first we will multiply tot with 10. That will give us 12 into 10, 120, and we will add 5. That will give us 125. Now, I guess that's clear. Now what happens if it's a space? If it's space or its last index. If str equal to space or I is equal to n minus 1, what we will do is we'll add the current tot value to the vector red, and also we will make the tot value to 0. Okay, so if the value of tot is not equal to 0, since the integers will be positive, so if there are multiple spaces, we will also handle that case. If there are multiple spaces, we won't be adding 0 to our vector. So if the value of tot is not equal to 0, then we will add it to our vector red, and we will make tot equal to 0. Then we will return the vector. So what basically happens here is, actually, let me recap that. We will run a loop that runs from 0 to n, and if we don't find a space and a number, we will add that number to a variable tot. And we will do that by multiplying tot by 10 and then adding the integer value of that number. Then if there is a space or I is equal to n minus 1, that means the end of the string. Okay. What we are doing wrong here. Okay, so what we are doing wrong here is, what if the last element, that means when I is equal to n minus 1, what if in the last element there is a digit? If we use else if, then we will never find out the last integer, that means the 25, since both these conditions won't be applied at the same time. So what we have to do is we have to use if. If the last index element is a digit, we will add that in tot. Then we will check if it is a space or not. If it had been space, this condition wouldn't be implemented anyways. So, however, if this was not a digit, if this was not a space, and this was the last index, then we will both add the digit to the tot and we will push the tot in the red. Okay, then we will return the value of the vector. Now that we have all the integers in this vector v, we have to initialize the variables res as 0. Then we will run a loop. Now for each pair, what we will be doing is we will check if the value of race is lesser than the GCD of Vi and Vj. That means a pair of two integers from the vector V. If the value of the current GCD is larger than the initial race, then we will update the race to the current GCD. Since we are doing same function calling twice, let's store it in a variable underscore GCD. Okay, so whenever we are finding a larger GCD pair, we will update the value of race. Okay, let's keep the value of V size in a variable called SZ. Okay, now we will be printing the value of race as output. Race will basically be the largest GCD of any two pairs. Now what we will be doing in this GCD function? We will apply the Euclidean GCD in this function. Okay. At first we will check if A is less than B, then we will swap A and B. We are doing this since our Euclidean GCD algorithm is designed for cases when the value of A is greater than or equal to the value of B. Now we will check if B is equal to 0, we will return A. Else we will return the GCD of B and A mod B. If you take a look at our Euclidean GCD algorithms tutorial, you will get the idea how this function works. Let's do this swapping part here rather than doing that there. If the value of Vi is less than Vj, we will swap. Okay, let's keep those values in two different variables. If Vi is less than Vj, then we will change those variables. A will be equal to Vj and B will be equal to Vi. Rather than Vi and Vj, we will pass A and B as parameter. Okay. Now what we are doing is we are applying Euclidean GCD algorithm here, and we are checking if the value is greater than the current GCD number, that is race. If that's the case, then we will update the race. Let's check if this works fine. Okay. Just copy the inputs, paste them here. Okay. Now what is happening here is after taking 3 as input of test case, we are getting 0 as output. Why is that happening? We haven't taken input of the string yet. What is happening here actually is whenever we are pressing enter after taking input of t, the compiler is counting that enter as a string. To avoid this from happening, we will add this getCar method function. What is the sorry? Let's find out about getCar. Okay. Now getCar returns the next character from the standard input. That means whenever we are pressing enter after taking input of the T, it will take the enter as input, and enter won't disturb the next string's input. That means whenever if we take input of string, when we press enter, then we take another string, usually the enter will be counted as the next string input. But if we add getCar, we'll be able to avoid that from happening. So the header file of getCar is good old stdioh. Okay. Let's run the code again. As we can see, we are getting correct up to 21 and 25. So let's copy the code and submit. As we can see, it is accepted. So our approach was correct. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.